Please join me in welcoming our next candidate, former controller, Scott Stringer. Hey, Scott. Good to see you, brother. Yeah. How are you?
I am good. It's great to be back with all of you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you for spending this time with us and wanting to hear and spend time with us as school leaders. Your partnership means a great deal to us. So we'll start here, Scott. You've referenced often publicly your belief in strong schools for all. In fact, you were the former controller and a father of 2 children in public schools. How would you ensure funding is maximized to build what you define as strong schools?
Henry, I got to tell you something. The experience of raising my 2 little boys who are now 13 and 11. Some people think they're my grandchildren, but they're actually my kids. Sometimes I feel like the grandfather, but now they're in middle school. And I have to say, by the grace of God, my wife and I can confront any problem with the resources we have. We're middle-class folks, we have a credit card, and we're able to get them through whatever their challenges. Except my kids, as you know, are perfect, right? You've never heard a bad thing. But sometimes they're not, and sometimes they need help. We can take care of that. The problem in the system right now is as hard as principals, assistant principals, and teachers work, the resources are not equally distributed. So the kids who need that extra help, the kids who need the tutoring, the professional help, post-COVID mental health issues, they never see the light of day because the Department of Education is not funding every school equally in the same way, and I want to change that.
Thank you. Scott, strong early education is dependent on a strong, stable early childhood workforce of leaders and teachers. For years, our union has argued that our members who work in CBOs and early childhood programs should be put on a path to parity along with their brothers and sisters in the Department of Education. Give us your thoughts. What specific steps will you take to improve pay equity for early childhood educators in our system and city?
So look, the challenge we have is for those early educators, for teachers, for principals, the supervisors, people are leaving the system. 40% of teachers leave after 5 years. Then you got to replace them. We're going to reduce class size. But do we have enough teachers, principals, assistant principals? I would say no. So we either have to step up and end the inequity, or the system, as we know it, will not be here in 10 years. We see it in the schools that I have visited. We see it in my own personal experience. But Henry, let's invest the money. And how do you do this? Well, as controller, some of that money never goes into the classroom. $41 billion. Let's do a top-to-bottom audit and finally move resources exactly where they have to go, in the classrooms, into the CBOs. Pay equity is critical because some of the people who are teaching our babies at the earliest age, they then go home, right? And they got to go work a second job, or they can't help their own children. What have we done? What have we done? So I want to see a way that we can reimagine where that money goes. We've gotten money out of Albany. We have the class size mandate. The next mayor has to have the financial experience and ability to get this done.
Thank you for that, Scott. And in our particular case, not sure if you're aware, but we represent about 170 of those workers, and 90% of which are black and brown women leading families and having a very tough time being able to live in New York City based on their size. So we greatly appreciate this. Some of them are in this audience today as well. Scott, how would you envision collective bargaining with the public sector? And how will you commit to a strong labor partnership beyond not just contract negotiations?
Look, since my earliest days in the Assembly, as Manhattan Borough President and as City Controller, someone who managed the retirement security of many of you in this room, and someday you will have that pension that you've earned, and I think we should reverse Tier 6 so that you can have retirement security. And that's where we're going to work with our labor leaders and allies to go to Albany and get that done. But I also think you can't move the needle unless you understand partnership. You got to actually work with people, and you have to like people, and you have to be able to not every candidate likes people, but you need someone who can be a collaborator, and that has been the key to my success. In the Assembly, I passed laws that helped the education system in the city because I could work with the Republicans in the state Senate. As borough president, when we reimagined community boards, we made sure that we had teachers and students and a wide variety of diverse interests shaping public opinion and the like. So I am ready to continue my 30-year record working with labor. There has never been a time, a picket line, a meeting, an issue that labor needed me as an ally that I was not at the forefront. And I'll continue that as the mayor of New York City. And collective bargaining, we're going to get to the agreement of a lifetime because you and I both know the stakes are too high to mess that up.
Thank you. Thank you for that partnership. I'll hold you to that, Scott. An agreement of the lifetime.
Henry, I know, will hold me to it.
And greatly appreciate your comments around Tier 6, which is a real sore point for our members, something that was rammed down our throats without the voice of school leaders and other workers across the state. So we greatly appreciate that on behalf of our members.
Thank you.
Scott, we always believe that the best candidate to lead our system should have the experience of leading a New York City school. What would you prioritize in selecting a chancellor? Will you commit to appointing a chancellor with direct experience leading a New York City public school?
Look, there are two vital appointments that a mayor makes. One is the police commissioner, and the other is the schools chancellor. And the schools chancellor sets the tone, sets the agenda, working with the mayor. And I want to say to all of you, and I believe this, and you and I have talked about this, you should not appoint a chancellor without consultation, and you should not appoint a chancellor in a vacuum. So I hope that we can sit down and figure out the best quality person. And the one thing, Henry, I would tell you about me, and to the degree that I've had success in my life as an elected official, I'm going to let you in on something I feel strongly about. I don't know everything. You're not supposed to say that when you're running for mayor, right? What I do know is how to build capacity in every office I've had. I divested from fossil fuel with labor because we had capacity to get $4 billion out of the system and start to talk about climate change. We divested from private prisons because I knew how to do it. I had people who knew how to do it. I divested from guns. The reason I tell you this is it's easy to come here and talk and make talk is cheap. But when you look at our record, you see that we actually build capacity to get things done. That's what you want in the next mayor. Who's going to bring in the talent? We're going to pick the best chancellor in the city, and that chancellor is going to have the autonomy and authority and the collaboration with you to get this system up and running again.
Appreciate that partnership.
Thank you. Thank you.
Scott, you know this. You've protected our pensions for many years, and historically, New York City municipal workers have earned significantly less than the private sector. How would you continue to ensure that both the current and future school leaders maintain premium-free, high-quality health care? And will you commit to preserving retiree choice to stay in traditional Medicare without any penalties?
As the first retiree to run for mayor with 2 kids, we are never going to go back on the promise to our retirees. We're going to keep the best health insurance, make it better, not weaker, and say goodbye to the lawsuits, say goodbye to the game playing. People, we made a deal with folks, and the deal was you're going to accept less on the front end, but we're going to make sure you have retirement security and health care on the back end. It was a total deal, and that deal has stayed with us for generations, except till now. Now they're coming for health care. Now they're coming to reduce pension benefits. And then what's the point of all that when we suddenly have people at the end of 20 and 30 years, a lifetime of doing the work that they love, they suddenly can't pay to rent. They can't stay in the city that they build. They don't get to see the kids they educated in the neighborhood anymore because they're forced to leave. I will never compromise on that, Henry, ever.
Wow, thank you. You know, I didn't realize, Scott, that you're retired collecting a pension and running for mayor on a fixed income, so it gives you a unique perspective, especially having two kids in New York City.
Collective bargaining is good. Unions are good, right? I'm your poster child.
Collective bargaining is great. The city's been unable to hire enough school safety agents, and we still have schools without an assistant principal. You might have heard just earlier there was a student shot in the head outside her school today in the Bronx. Given the rise of violent incidents in schools and within our communities, what specific plans would you implement to address this rise in our concerns around school safety?
First, I want to say that Yeah, I've heard the argument, we don't need to have school safety officers in the front of the building, in front of the house. And I just, anyone who says that to me, I just want to walk them into a school one day and then remind them of the challenges of what an open door means and who's the first line of defense. These six school safety officers, mostly women of color, are the first line of defense for your child. The first line of defense for your daughter or son who happens to be a teacher or a principal, people sitting vulnerable in an office. So let's cut it out. We need school safety officers. We need to give them the benefits and the salaries they need because they are literally risking their lives and they're protecting other kids' lives. What happens in an asthma attack? What happens when 911 or 311 has to be called? What happens is there's a domestic violence order of protection that's been violated and everybody is looking around with people running through the hallway? I would never put my children in that situation. And when I see my school safety officer in the morning, you know what I say to her? Good morning and thank you.
Thank you, Scott. It's so true.
It's really
There's nothing more sacred to us as school leaders and administrators than the safety of our kids. Parents like you drop them off every day, and we just want to make sure we give them right back to you in better shape than when they came in.
Look, we make them, you raise them, let's be honest.
They do spend more time with us often.
They do, they do.
And by the time they get home, they're tired.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The state legislature will again debate mayoral control. As mayor, what checks and balances would you be open to in order to give educators, school administrators, and parents a greater voice?
I'm for mayoral control. I believe that the mayor, we need one person accountable to the school system. That's the person you decide to keep or fire if he or she is not doing the job. I'm open to the checks and balances, whether it's on the PEP or other ways to ensure accountability and oversight. Look, when I was controller, as you remember, and I know Mark is here, he remembers as well, I was dogged in my audits and investigations of the DOE and of the former mayor. I audited him 364 days a year. I gave him Christmas off because I understood that we're only getting, I really did. But I understood that the way to fight and the way to be successful is to have that accountability. I actually think if this mayor had somebody who was like me, on the case, I think things would not have happened the way they did. So I am very much for accountability. I am not afraid of accountability, but I do think we need a strong mayor to have the ability to be recognized as a leader of the school system with the chancellor.
Thank you. Scott, you mentioned going to Albany and tackling with labor Tier 6. There's another creature in Albany that was created, and we're the only place in New York City, in the country, where we use city funds to pay for charter school leases. The only place in the country, in the state. How would your administration ensure that the unintended consequences don't impact our public schools in your term as a mayor?
Thanks to the help of this union, I was the assembly member who defeated Eva Moskowitz for borough president, and that was, and that wasn't, that race was no harder than this one today, but we did it. And so, look, to me, these are our public school buildings. They're there, but the charter schools are there, but they're guests of ours. And we have to make sure that our public schools get the resources that they need. I have walked into too many schools as borough president and as the assembly when they were co-located, when one side of the house had the beautiful bathroom, the flowers in the bathroom, the playground, right, on the one side, and our kids were living in a different universe, and it affected their education. And I used to walk into those schools and say, where is my borough president funding? I didn't fund that side of the room. I funded this side of the room, and we have to start equalizing it, man. It's the only way to do it.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to try to squeeze in two questions.
All right, I'll go.
But really quick, I don't know if I've mentioned this in our conversation, but when you were borough president, I was a principal in Manhattan, and you actually funded my clinic. You gave me like $400,000, $500,000.
I knew you were going to be the...
You knew I was going to be the president.
But that...
Two quick ones. Would you, just know, would you, as mayor, would you support making remote work permanent?
I am definitely for what we're about to go through, which is remote work options, and look at this pilot program and see if we can make it permanent. I think part of the mistake of what we've been realizing is workplace balance, life balance matters. I am for remote learning. I'm for this experiment you're engaging in. I want to work with you and partner with you in it.
Thank you. Our last question. Can you share a school leader or educator who had a significant impact on your life, Scott?
Yes, I can. There was a very tough geometry teacher that I had at junior high school 52 in Washington Heights. And
Which school?
52?
52 in Washington Heights.
Washington Heights, where I grew up. I went to Kennedy, by the way, for high school, not GW. But I remember I was struggling with geometry, and he said to me, he said, listen, you're in 7th grade, but you're not cutting it. So I want to work with you. I want to help you. I want to tutor you. I want to really think of this. You're an unusual kid to me. And I said, why? I said, because you keep coming in every day with the New York Times under your arm, He said, and you just got appointed to local community board, so I think you want a career in government and politics. I said, I do, and I want to do well in geometry, but it's just not going to happen for me. So he says, I'll make a deal with you. If you do this makeup test the best you can, I'm not going to impede your forward progress. But you have to promise me one thing. I said, anything. You promise me you'll never have a job that had anything to do with math. And I true story.
And we trusted you with our pension.
I know.
You tell me this now?
You brought it out of me. And
I didn't know this was going to be a comedy show.
All right, it's over.
Well, Scott,
thank you
for your time.
You. Appreciate it.
Great gentleman. Thank you, Scott. I
Thank
appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.